Right in the heart of power, the skies erupt in chaos. On October 2, 2025, Vladimir Putin ended a nearly 4-hour speech at the Valdai Forum in Sochi, claiming Russia was fighting almost the entire NATO bloc, yet advancing steadily. He mocked US President Donald Trump's paper tiger label for Russia, challenging the West to confront it.
Are we a paper tiger? Then what is NATO in this case? What is NATO like?
But just 30 minutes later, UAV air raid warnings screamed across Sochi and Gelendzhik. Airports shut down for hours, stranding thousands with at least 24 flights delayed. Some reports say over 40, rerouted as far as Grozny, 300 miles away. This was no lone strike. Russia's defense ministry reported downing 85 drones that night across Crimea, Voronezh, Belgorod, Rostov, Volgograd, and Penza, the largest coordinated deep attack since early 2025. The economic toll cuts deeper. Ukrainian drones have hit refineries in Tuapse, Ryazan, Samara, and Nizhny Novgorod for months, knocking out up to 40% of Russia's oil processing capacity. Fuel shortages explode, with lines stretching miles at gas stations, prices soaring, and ration coupons enforced in Crimea. Farmers in Krasnodar revolt over diesel scarcity threatening crops, as inflation hits over 8%, stirring silent dissent. Physical harm in Sochi stayed low, no big explosions, but the mental blow lands hard. Sochi, Putin's shining emblem from the 2014 Olympics, his bastion of luxury and safety, now appears exposed. This attack didn't just sting militarily, it demolished Russia's untouchable myth, timed perfectly as Putin boasted globally. Is this a mere warning tap, or Ukraine's first step in a calculated plan to dismantle his invincible facade? Stay tuned to unpack the clash's timeline, warring forces, and strategic ripples reshaping world dynamics. Vladimir Putin stepped onto the stage at the Valdai Forum in Sochi, delivering a speech that lasted almost 4 hours, where he declared Russia was clashing with nearly the whole NATO alliance, but still gaining ground steadily. The event unfolded in the Black Sea resort city, a spot long tied to Putin's image of strength and luxury, as he painted a picture of Moscow's forces holding firm against Western pressure. He highlighted how NATO nations had poured resources into Ukraine, turning the conflict into a proxy fight that tested the alliance's resolve, yet Russian troops pressed on without faltering. This narrative served as a bold signal to global audiences, emphasizing economic toughness amid sanctions and military gains on the battlefield. Attendance reached around 150 experts and officials, with sessions scripted to showcase Russia's viewpoint on world order, drawing from themes of multipolarity that challenge US dominance. Putin then turned his fire directly at US President Donald Trump, ridiculing the recent comment that labeled Russia a paper tiger for struggling in the war. He flipped the insult back with sharp wit, questioning what that made NATO if Moscow could stand toe-to-toe with the bloc and keep advancing. The remark landed amid laughter from the crowd, underscoring Putin's knack for blending defiance with humor to rally supporters. Trump had made the jab during a September meeting with generals, pointing to over 3 years of fighting that yielded slow results at high cost. But Putin countered by noting how European training centers now openly backed Kyiv's operations. This exchange highlighted deepening rifts across the Atlantic, where American leaders pushed for tougher measures while Europe grew warier of escalation. State media outlets broadcast clips of the address right at 10 p.m. Moscow time, framing Putin as the clear victor in a standoff against superior odds, with visuals of applauding delegates reinforcing his command. Channels like Russia 1 and RT looped footage of his confident gestures, tying the talk to broader tales of resilience that kept domestic viewers hooked on themes of national pride. Yet within half an hour, Emergency alerts for unmanned aerial vehicles pierced the calm over Sochi and Gelendzhik, thrusting the airports into full crisis mode as flights ground to a halt. Officials scrambled to secure the airspace, diverting incoming traffic and holding departures, which exposed cracks in what was billed as an ironclad defense zone. The shift from podium triumph to sudden peril caught even local residents off guard, with streetlights flickering under the strain of heightened security protocols. Telegram channels soon filled with raw footage of anti-aircraft rounds streaking through the dark over the Black Sea, bursts of tracer fire lighting up the horizon like fireworks gone wrong. Users shared shaky clips from balconies and car dashboards, capturing the rapid thuds of interceptors chasing shadows, while distant booms echoed off the waves. These posts, viewed over 1 million times in hours, showed crews manning S-400 batteries in frantic bursts, their systems straining against low-flying threats that hugged the coastline to evade early detection. The visuals painted a tense picture of vulnerability, where the resort's famed serenity gave way to the raw mechanics of modern defense, forcing analysts to question how such incursions slipped through layered safeguards. The night over the Black Sea turned into a frenzy of alerts and shutdowns, as Russia's Federal Air Transport Agency confirmed that all civilian flights faced severe curbs overnight, locking down the skies above Sochi and Gelendzhik. Authorities moved fast to protect incoming jets from potential collisions with rogue drones, grounding operations that usually buzz with tourist charters. This halt disrupted over 200 daily arrivals, forcing pilots to circle or peel off to safer zones, while radar pings jammed navigation paths in the crowded coastal corridor. Ground crews stood idle as control towers barked orders, turning a routine evening into a standoff between technology and threat. Sochi's mayor, Andrei Proshunin, then went live with a stark announcement of a full-blown unmanned aerial vehicle crisis, urging everyone to hunker down indoors away from open spaces. His voice cut through local channels around 11 p.m., painting a picture of scattered incursions that demanded immediate sheltering to dodge falling debris. Proshunin's plea highlighted how these buzzing intruders could strike without warning, their quiet engines slipping past outer sentries, which left residents questioning promised safeguards. Emergency lines lit up with reports of flickering power in suburbs, as teams scanned rooftops for impacts. The Association of Tour Operators in Russia tallied at least 24 to 40 flights caught in the mess, many diverted to Grozny in a desperate scramble that stretched routes beyond normal limits. Pilots battled headwinds to reach the Chechen hub 500 kilometers east, where runways rarely saw such a flood of unscheduled traffic. Ground handlers worked overtime to park the extras, their tarmac swelling with unexpected birds which jammed gates and left baggage in disarray. Such shifts exposed how aerial threats could ripple into commerce, hitting the $2 billion tourism sector that relies on smooth landings. Sochi's main airfield stayed sealed for a solid 7 hours, trapping more than 3,000 travelers in echoing terminals that felt like holding pens. This blockade cost airlines roughly $500,000 in lost slots, while stragglers from Europe missed connections, turning getaways into unplanned layovers. Security swept the perimeter twice with handheld scanners, dragging out the weight and amplifying whispers of flaws in the response chain. Social feeds exploded with clips of folks sprawled across gate floors, blankets draped like makeshift tents in the haze of shared despair. One grainy reel racked up 2 million views by dawn, showing a dad juggling kids amid snack wrappers, his face etched with uncertainty. These raw glimpses, posted from phone cams in dim corners, fueled debates on Russian platforms, drawing comments that mixed anger with calls for countermeasures. The footage served as a stark mirror to the glamour in brochures, revealing how incursions could unravel normalcy in a flash. The strikes reached far beyond Sochi that same night of October 2nd, as Russia's defense ministry announced it had neutralized 85 unmanned aerial vehicles over key areas, including Crimea, Voronezh, Belgorod, Saratov, Rostov, Volgograd, and Penza, marking a bold push into Moscow's heartland. Commanders activated layered shields to counter the influx, with crews tracking blips that dotted the map from annexed shores to central plains. This barrage tested response times across vast distances, pulling resources from routine patrols to urgent intercepts, while spotters scanned horizons for incoming wings. The ministry's tally broke down to 38 intercepts in Voronezh alone, 13 near Crimea's bridges, and 11 above Belgorod's fields, showing how planners aim to overload sentries with volume. Experts in military circles labeled this the most sweeping unmanned assault on Russian soil since January 2025, outpacing prior waves in scope and coordination. Observers noted the timing synced with forum chatter, suggesting a deliberate jab at weak points, where operators scripted paths to probe outer rings. The operation blended decoys with real payloads to confuse handlers, sparking talks in think tanks about straining budgets already stretched thin. Coverage highlighted the strain on crews, who logged over 200 hours of vigilance that week, yet the push revealed how smaller forces could dictate tempo through sheer numbers, forcing defenders to burn ammo at triple the norm. Suspected models included the UJ-26 Beaver, a sleek, fixed-wing craft that skimmed low to duck under detection sweeps, pairing electronic disruptions with swarm rushes to flood engagement zones. This bird packed a 20-kilogram charge into a frame, gliding at 150 kilometers per hour, hugging terrain to mask signatures from afar. Teams released groups in waves, where lead units jammed signals to blind trackers, allowing tails to slip through for final dashes, chewing up interceptor stocks without direct clashes. Production ramped to hundreds monthly, making it a go-to for hits on fuel dumps, where its quiet profile turns open skies into sneaky highways. Pilots tweaked courses mid-flight via satlinks, dodging fire by dipping into valleys, keeping costs under $100,000 per unit against pricier foes. Clips circulating on Russian networks captured S-400 batteries unleashing salvos in rapid bursts, orange streaks arcing into the void, though many intruders evaded the net to press onward. Operators fed coordinates into consoles humming with alerts, launching missiles in sequenced volleys to blanket sectors, but shadows darted past the glow, vanishing into land or sea mist. These sequences, shared widely on Telegram by dawn, showed launchers pivoting amid rural dust, their radars sweeping arcs that missed dips where threats lurked, racking up millions of views as locals pieced together the night's roar. The gaps fueled chatter among gearheads about tuning flaws, where software lagged on small signatures. Certain unmanned units zeroed in on detection voids circling Sochi, a tactic that exposed deep knowledge of Moscow's guard layout, as noted by outlets like Defense Express. Planners mapped these soft corners using shared intel, routing paths through valleys shielded by peaks or urban clutter that scrambles beams. This precision turned blind arcs into entry points, where birds looped low to unload before climbing out, striking nerves in a zone meant for elite watch. Analysts pegged success rates at 30% for such runs, proving how intel edges tip scales in shadow games. The ripple effects from drone barrages on Russia's oil facilities cascaded into widespread economic turmoil and social strain, exposing cracks in a system built on promises of endless plenty.
Ukraine has struck again, this time targeting one of Russia's largest oil refineries.
Months of precision strikes on sites like Tuapse, Ryazan, Samara, and Nizhny Novgorod slashed refining output by 17 to 30%, as flames gutted distillation towers and halted crude flows. Managers at these giants, churning 1.5 million barrels daily under normal hum, now scramble to restart pumps amid charred pipes, while export lines to Asia stutter with partial loads. This drop hammered state coffers by billions in a quarter where global demand stayed hot, forcing budget tweaks that cut welfare boosts. The void left refiners idling at half speed, their vast tanks rusting under southern suns, turning black gold into a scarce commodity. Fuel scarcity gripped the nation like a vice, spawning queues that snaked kilometers through city streets, while pump rates climbed 20% in weeks, prompting coupons in hard-hit zones to curb hoarding. Drivers in Moscow suburbs idled engines for dawn arrivals, clutching empty tanks as attendants doled out liters under watchful eyes, a scene echoing empty promises from leaders touting surplus barrels. Black market dealers hawked jerry cans at double tags, drawing crowds from truckers to taxi fleets, yet supplies trickled too slow, with daily sales dipping 40% below peaks. Regional governors begged for exemptions, but central decrees held firm, rationing 20 liters per vehicle in urban pockets, sparking fistfights and viral rants. The squeeze hit hardest on delivery vans, stalling goods from bread to meds. Southern pockets like Crimea, Kuban, and Krasnodar bore the brunt, where growers faced barren fields without enough diesel to run harvesters come fall. Village heads rallied protests at district halls, banners waving for fuel drops that never came, while irrigation pumps sputtered dry, threatening next spring's sowings. This drought choked exports of grains feeding half of Europe, slashing farm incomes by a third and piling debt on families stretched by rising feed costs. Officials toured parched lots with empty trucks, their tours more photo ops than fixes, deepening the chasm between rural grit and distant decrees. Price pressures ballooned beyond 8% annually, igniting flickers of quiet defiance in far-flung districts where whispers of boycott circled markets and mills. Shoppers skipped staples to stretch rubles, thinned by tag hikes on everything from milk to meat, bartering goods for basics in back-alley swaps dodging tax nets. Economic gauges showed consumer trust at lows, with savings rates climbing as folks save cash, a hedge against the slide, gnawing at middle-class dreams. The Sochi incursion tipped the scales as the breaking point, crumbling the facade of calm and security that Moscow had peddled for years. The fallout wove military jabs into daily woes, where a single night's buzz shattered the narrative of a fortress nation. Sochi's incursion delivered a devastating psychological and political gut punch, transforming Putin's prized enclave into a glaring arena of public shame that echoed far beyond the resort's glittering shores. The city stood as the Kremlin's glossy emblem, hosting the 2014 Winter Games that showcased Moscow's revival with billion-dollar arenas, while the Valdai gathering served as an annual pulpit for the leader to weave tales of unchallenged might. Delegates from 40 nations mingled in opulent halls that evening, absorbing narratives of a resurgent power, yet the venue's role bolstered domestic faith, where polls showed 70% of citizens viewed it as a beacon of stability. This backdrop amplified the sting, as the spot meant to project prestige now hosted flashes of tracer fire. That October 2nd dusk, Ukrainian operators flipped the script with ruthless timing, recasting the forum's polished theater into a vivid emblem of exposure. The assault's choreography ensured headlines framed frantic scrambles, with foreign press snapping images of cordoned zones where luxury yachts bobbed uneasily. Key partners such as Beijing, Delhi, and Tehran now harbor growing skepticism about Moscow's border grip, chilling diplomatic warmth in trade talks. Chinese outlets downplayed the breach, yet memos revealed jitters over supply routes through vulnerable skies, prompting hedges with Kiev's backers. Indian firms paused energy ventures, citing risk premiums jumping 12%, while Iranian guards beefed up patrols along flanks, fearing copycats. These ripples, tracked in summits with cooler handshakes, erode trust among those betting on alliances, potentially stalling arms and oil deals worth billions. the aura of an impregnable Russia crumbled, piercing Western broadcasts and ordinary citizens' thoughts, where doubt festers like unchecked embers. State filters spun chaos as glitches, but chats swelled with 300,000 posts questioning shield effectiveness, blending fear with accountability calls quashed by patrols. Kiev's forces pivoted to mind games, where every drone packed a piercing reminder that no sanctum lies out of reach. Operators laced flights with signal jams, sowing confusion before impacts, logging 40% hit rates on soft targets. This crafts narratives of inevitability, eroding morale without ground boots, compelling rethink of red lines in shadowed rooms, where overreach whispers compete with retaliation vows. Does this tilt toward perception battles signal the war's next front? The Sochi skies shattered more than the night. 85 drones downed, 40 flights grounded, and up to 30% of Russia's refining muscle crippled in months of hits that left gas lines snaking for miles and inflation roaring past 8%. On October 2, 2025, this wasn't mere hardware clashing. It struck at Vladimir Putin's soul of control, rippling from Black Sea resorts to Siberian farms. Those unmanned wings pierced the leader's private fortress, bombing not soil but the myth of unbreakable safety holding Russia's masses. Farmers in Krasnodar faced stalled tractors due to diesel shortages, risking significant crop losses, while city lines for fuel rations strained community ties, weakening the belief in stability for loyalty. State media downplayed the disorder, but public murmurs spread, slowly undermining confidence in national unity. The Sochi attack, hitting Putin's prized Olympic and Valdai venue, shifted bold NATO challenges to urgent alarms and trapped travelers, prompting even supporters to question the strength of Russia's defenses. In today's grind, Ukraine proved the shift. Weapons aren't tanks or shells. They're clock ticks, cymbal stings, tails twisting longer than smoke. Sochi morphed from power's backdrop to fragility's reveal, mocking Putin's paper tiger jab and daring the West to watch. What's next in this shadow war? Drone swarms burrowing deeper, eyeing Moscow's spires or industrial veins? Putin swinging with firepower abroad, or tighter domestic fists to muzzle murmurs? The board teeters on unmapped edges. Drop your takes below. What's the Kremlin's countermove, and how long till the next shake? The clock ticks, and these skies stay restless.